guys. I guess to pick up where I left off from the last episode, tonight is the night before the big day. And just kind of wanted to kind of just loop you in on my intention setting for this trip of losing my psychedelic virginity, as I've been calling it. So this is probably going to be one of the last video diaries before this trip takes place. And I guess I'm feeling, I don't feel nervous. I think I had a little bit of nerves before, but it is like really interesting. I feel excited. I feel certain. I feel sure. I feel like everything is working out the way I need it to in order to continue on in my journey. And so I'm sure people are wondering, like, so why now? Like, after all these years of like never being a partier and never like even smoking weed or never I don't know, like all the stuff that, you know, a lot of people do and experiment with, like in their you know, like their 20s or their teens even. And so my story is a little long and evolved, but basically so one of the things with me is that I have kind of like struggled like off and on for years, basically like pretty much my whole life. And it's funny because I was talking to an old friend, and she was saying that you know, one of her kids like has, you know, suffered from, you know, learning disabilities and learning difficulties, and we've actually experienced some very similar things. So I guess like what really started hitting home for me was last year during quarantine. And 2020 was like an interesting year. I was still like working this job, a desk job as an assistant, and I was you know, working remotely from home, you know, during quarantine. And I was having a really hard time focusing. And it was always kind of like a running joke of like how, you know, oh, I'm so ADD, I'm so ADD, you know, right? Like that was like just kind of this thing that I would just say. And not because I didn't believe it, but because, you know, it seemed very in alignment with everything that I had learned about ADD. And so last year, what was like really frustrating me was that I would start a task and then I couldn't finish it. And then I'd start another task, and then the last task that I started wasn't finished. And then that one wasn't finished because then I had to do another task, and then that one wasn't finished. And it's just like literally kept going on. And it was exhaustive. It was completely exhaustive. And what I had always thought was that, oh, well, the reason why I'm not focusing and I'm not, you know, concentrating is because like before quarantine, the reason why I'm not focusing is because, well, people keep interrupting me, or the phone keeps ringing, or I keep having to do some type of like assistant work. But it was always, the focus was outside of me. It was never about what was going on inside of me. And so, I knew I could be like a little bit scattered, and it was kind of, a running joke with, one of my teachers and even friends sometimes when I try and explain it to them. And what was really frustrating is that I got accused of being a perfectionist, but that wasn't really my issue. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just trying to finish what I started. And no matter how hard I tried, no matter how strong my intention was in that, um, it just was not working. And I was just like, I'm too old to like have these problems. Like I should have like dealt with this in my, teens or, as a kid in like elementary school or something like that. And I'm just really grateful to quarantine because that was the first time I'd ever spent that much time in complete isolation. And, I've been around people like whether it was a roommate or a friend or a teacher. Again, teachers are my word for people I'm no longer in a relationship with. But yeah, it was always kind of like my attention, my energy went towards their trauma, towards their anxiety, towards their depression, towards their, fill in the blank, right? And it just got really distracting because then I couldn't tell the difference between their stuff versus my stuff. And I realized that in putting all of my attention on being a problem solver for them, it was just distracting me from dealing with my own stuff. And I decided that, I wanted it to stop. I wanted my mind to just slow down and just focus. And, one of the friends I was talking to at the time, she's now a teacher for me as well. And she says, now it's like you're too hard on yourself. That's what she would say. Like, everybody loses their attention. And it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, we all lose our attention span every 6 to 10 seconds per minute or something like that, right? But everybody does have like distractions. Not everybody has it to the point to where it's literally interfering with their daily life and makes it to where they can't, finish doing the dishes, or they can't finish just even like the smallest, like the most like minuscule of tasks. And one of the things that she said, which is actually similar to another teacher I had that I actually used to work with, who was a boss of mine at the time. And she would say, Nazra, you don't have ADD, you just need to pay attention. And that's so annoying because really it's just like, what the fuck do you think that the ADD stand for? It is a deficit of attention. And people not really understanding a disorder, not understanding the difference between the difference between like being hard on myself versus me voicing that this issue is actually hard on me. Voicing that something is hard for me is not the same thing as me being hard on myself. And people didn't really get that. And I think a lot of people don't get that. Oh, Nazra, you don't have to, you don't have ADD, you just have to pay attention. Oh, gee, thanks. Like I never thought of that before, like big, huge, like revelation. And so I really like encourage people like who say that to literally just stop saying that, because you're not helping, you're wrong. And it's no different than telling someone who has amnesia, like, you just need to remember and you just need to focus. It's like, what the fuck do you think they're trying to do? Do you think they're trying not to remember? No, they're not. And so, that's why I feel like I'm so grateful to quarantine, because it was the first time I was in an environment where I was responsible for starting and completing certain tasks. And I didn't have outside distractions of, again, someone walking up to the desk, or, me needing to go and make copies of something, or, things like that, that normally distracted me from a bigger issue. And so at a certain point, I was just like, okay, clearly I do have ADD, and this is frustrating, and I want to do something about it. And so I talked to someone, I talked to a therapist, like telehealth or something like that. And she, made some really wonderful suggestions that would have been very helpful for someone who didn't have a disorder. But there's still great suggestions, right? I mean, you still do have to work to change the behavior. You just can't always like pop a magic pill and just think that everything's going to go all better again. And I had a lot of reservations around that, because I'm like, I'm an adult. I don't want to have to take, a medication to help me focus. But then I thought about, Bradley Cooper in Limitless, and I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. Did you see his focus? Like, he finished an entire script in a day or a weekend or something like that. And I really was just at a point where I didn't want to lose my job, and I had to do something because what I was doing wasn't working. I took all of these like different, like, even, supplements, and just different things I was doing, like natural, like home remedies. I was trying to meditate, and my brain was beer, 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 beer. Like, it was just all over the place. Couldn't get, a clear mind. I couldn't just note things. They're like, oh, well, that's fine if, thoughts come up. But it wasn't that thoughts came up. It's just that thoughts came up and up and up and up and up. And they're like, well, just don't hold on to the thought. Well, that's really great advice for someone who has better control. And I understand the power of the mind. I mean, I've studied and listened to like, neuroscience lectures and, videos, for like probably a couple of years. So it's not that I don't know, these great little finite, solutions that are wonderful for people who don't, like I said, who don't have a disorder. And I don't mean to keep saying that as a way of like letting myself off the hook, because obviously I did not want to have this issue at all. Like, it was still really frustrating. And so, I started talking to someone, and they were just saying, there's lots of great research on Adderall. And so I thought, okay, great. I'll just take some Adderall and I'll be fine. I didn't want to. I had a lot of reservations about it. It's like, I don't want to be that person that's, that's taking, a drug, to help them focus. But at the same time, because like I said, I didn't want to lose my job. I was just like, I have to do what I have to do. And so I took Adderall, and something very interesting happened that apparently is not supposed to happen. I took it, and about 45 minutes. So the doctor told me, take a pill, and then, just like see, how it works. So I was like, okay, well, fine. I'll do it on a Saturday. Just in case, like, I don't know, I want to like go and like jump out of a window or something like that way. Like, I'm not on the clock, or I'm not like freaking out and having a panic attack at, 9:00 in the morning on a Monday. So I was just like, okay, I'll try it out on Saturday, and I'll give myself a task of cleaning my home and see how it goes, and see if I'm able to focus that way. And you might think like, oh, cleaning your home, like, how hard was that? Okay. It's not that it was hard. It's that it was so hard that it took me hours, like literally maybe like 8 hours, to do it. And For someone who has a really big house, that might make sense. For someone who has a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, that does not make a lot of sense. And what would happen in those situations, just kind of like paint a picture for you, is that I would literally say I started, cleaning my bedroom, right? Making up my bed, and I'd see, oh, like I left a glass on my bedside table. All right, let me take that into the kitchen. Then I would be in the kitchen, and then I would start cleaning the kitchen. Bedroom's not done yet. It's not done yet. And so, I'd be in the kitchen, doing that. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, you know what? I should check the bathroom and see if there's any glasses in there. Okay, I'd go in the bathroom, there are no glasses. And guess what? Now, I haven't finished the kitchen, and now I start cleaning the bathroom. And then I'm in the bathroom and I'm just going like, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to be cleaning the bathroom. I'm supposed to be washing dishes. So then on my way back from the bathroom through the bedroom, then I'm realizing like, oh, I didn't check the living room and see if there's glasses in the living room that need to be brought into the kitchen. And so then, I would end up like, oh, there are no glasses in here. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Guess what? Like it would be something, just as simple as, oh, well, I need to clean the litter box. Oh, okay, great. Clean the litter box. Great. All right. Take the litter out. And then it would literally be this circle that would last for hours and hours and hours on end. And then the next thing you know, I'm like, thumbing through like a photo album and, reminiscing and going like, oh my God, wasn't I so cute? And oh, like, wow, like the good old days. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. And it would be one thing if that was just like every once in a while, but that had become like a regular occurrence. So just imagine, you have high standards for yourself and you have high hopes for yourself, and it's like, no, don't do the whole thing and like go like, okay, well, this is like a perfectionism thing. No, my intention is to be amazing. And no, it's not about like having pressure for that. It's just the fact that if I can't even finish cleaning my home, my 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment within a couple of hours, and it ends up being like an 8 to like 9 or 10-hour situation, that's not good. So day one on the Adderall, I was thinking, okay, great. All right, I'm going to take the Adderall. So the doctor said, take it with food. And I was like, okay, great, wonderful. I'll take it with food. So I took it with food, and I had a beautiful feast. It was wonderful. And so in the Black community, like one of the things we say is like, we get like the itis, which is like basically saying you get hungry. You get sleepy after you eat. So I took the Adderall after I ate, and after I ate, I was just like, wow, I'm really tired. So I laid down and I took a nap for about 45 minutes. Apparently this is not supposed to even be possible because a lot of people have a hard time even like sleeping with Adderall, especially like let alone less than an hour after I took it. But what I will say is that about 45 minutes after I took it, I was sleepy. And then but I only slept for about 45 minutes. So I didn't even sleep a whole hour. So that's fine. And when I woke up, I will say on a scale of 1 to 5, I was awake at a 5. I felt like I had slept for a good 8 hours and I felt completely alert. And, just whatever it is that like coffee usually does for people that it never does for me, that's what Adderall did for me, is that it made me feel very alert. Now, focused, which is basically what it's for, not just for being alert, but being focused, that not so much. That I was not focusing. The only thing I was focusing on was literally doing the same thing that I already did, faster. So imagine my disappointment, right? And so I just thought, okay, well, it's just the first time. Let me try it again. So here's one thing about me, like when it comes to stuff like that, because I don't like to take medication, I really prefer to do like a natural route. Like if a natural route is available, like I prefer to do that. So yeah. So what happened was that, you know, I didn't stay on it for too long. And, you know, I would check in, like we did like every 2-week check-in with the psychiatrist of like, how do you feel? How is it working? Da, da, da. And I was like, yeah. And I told her, it's like, yeah, I went to sleep. And she's like, you went to sleep? And I'm like, yeah, I took a little nap, you know? And she's like, that's not supposed to happen. And I was like, yeah, I thought that was strange, but for whatever reason, like that was my experience, right? And so, so long story short, she prescribed like another thing for me, which I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was basically like another like derivative of Adderall. And so I took that, like, and granted, like we tweaked the Adderall a couple of times before we completely gave up on it. And she said, you know, and I said, okay, well, I did like half like in the morning and then I did the other half in the afternoon. And she's like, okay, that's fine. How was that? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. But it wore off very soon. And I would still, you know, get tired out. I didn't have any issues sleeping. I could still sleep the same. But I remember getting dry mouth a lot, no matter how much water I would drink. And I was drinking a lot of water, like really well, like back then. And yeah, that part was like really frustrating. I feel like there was another side effect, but now I can't remember what it was. But so I decided that, you know, this shit isn't working. And I'm not going to keep putting something in my body if it's not going to do if it's not going to fulfill the intention of why I'm doing it in the first place. So yeah, so then after that, I was prescribed something else, again, like another derivative of Adderall. And what I realized was that before I like started like really getting into taking it, was that one of the side effects of it was sudden death. I'm just going to make sure you heard that. Sudden death was what do you call it? It was like it wasn't like a high chance that you would die, but it was enough of a possibility that they put in a pamphlet. So there's that. And I was just floored that the idea that I could literally concentrate myself to death just didn't feel right in my soul. It didn't feel right in my soul. And so, you know, I told the doctor that, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to take this. And I think that was when she like prescribed like Vyvanse or something like that for me, which, man, I tell you, I started getting so nervous. And with the Adderall too, I was getting nervous, but also it didn't help because at the time, you know, the employers were like really strict. Like, I mean, if I sent something out with one typo, you guys, it was like, it was a big deal. And like, the more they would like notice things, like the worse it got. And so I would get to where I could barely send an email without like rereading it like 20 times. And, you know, literally like freaking out. And I would send the email to myself just so that in case I got like, you know, send remorse, then I could, you know, okay, go and like say like, all right, okay, I see like the mistake that I made, right? But just like the more they looked for it, like the worse it got. And I got so nervous to do anything. I didn't like, I was asking, you know, coworkers like check everything. Like, can you check it? Can you check this email before I send it out? Like I would just have like some like a form of like PTSD by sending out an email, you know, and then I started making mistakes that I wouldn't normally even make, you know, like I would write hell instead of hello, but the spell checker wouldn't change it because it wasn't spelled wrong. You know, just like little things like that, you know, like the word that instead of this or this instead of that. I'm like, oh my God, like this is, but it just got more and more intense because I think that just being in that situation, like where you're literally a heartbeat away from, you know, being, you know, being in the middle of like getting fired during a full-blown like quarantine pandemic was mortifying. And so, yeah, I just knew there was something else I had to do because my heart would be racing like for every little thing. And then I just like decided I had to go off of it because I don't want my heart racing like that. And that part like was really scary. And then I think one of the other ones, I think it had another side effect. I can't remember which one it was, but I was prescribed 3 or 4 different things. And none of them worked. Like all they did was, you know, make me like procrastinate faster, lose focus faster, which again, that's completely negates the whole purpose. But then I thought back on it and I realized that I've always kind of had this on a certain level because I had flashbacks to being in kindergarten. And I remember like having this notebook and we, you know, the teacher would like write things on the board and we have to take notes on it. I don't know what we were studying in kindergarten so hard like that. That's kind of weird. And I don't remember that part. But what I do remember is that, you know, we would have to take our own notebooks and take notes and like, you know, write, you know, what the teacher is writing on the board. And I remember just like thumbing through it, like really nervous, you know, thumbing through it. And like trying to find like the last page that I was on, like the day before. And everybody was always waiting for me. You know, I was always like the last one, you know, to find my place in my notebook. And then once I would find my place in my notebook, I would turn like to a bunch of other pages and just not just like turn to the very next page in the notebook. Because, you know, normally, you know, and I didn't keep doing this like as I got older, but, you know, but in kindergarten, like that's my earliest memory of feeling like really nervous and feeling like, you know, people were waiting on me and I was like holding up everyone. And instead of just like, you know, each day, like turning to like the next fresh page in the notebook, I would be like all over the place. It's like I would start in the beginning and then I'd end up in the middle and then I'd be like at the end, then I'd be back at like in between like the beginning and the middle. It was just like, it was just wild. And I remember this little like boy next to me was like this cute little like redheaded kid with like freckles and he had this cute little like raspy voice. I remember that part. And he would just, I remember one day he looked at the teacher and he says, why doesn't she just go in order? And she didn't say anything and she just like shook her, you know, shrugged her shoulders and just like kind of like shook her head like I don't know. But I thought that was so interesting because I was like, go in order. And I was just like, I don't know, why don't I go in order? Like, what does that even mean exactly? And I remember the teacher kind of like, I don't know, just now, like to this day, like, why didn't she say anything? Why didn't you say, Nazareth, honey, go in order? Lux's turn to, you know, and just like show me, like you're there to learn, like, and you're a teacher, like, why wouldn't you just show me, you know, how to do it properly? So yeah, that was annoying, but that happened. But that is my earliest memory of like really having a hard time focusing and concentrating and being organized and things like that. And so, you know, fast forward now, like I'm a grown ass adult and, you know, I can barely send an email without flying into like this PTSD, like anxious person, you know, that feels like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired because, you know, HR was reaching out to me. It was like a whole thing. It was a whole situation and it was mortifying. So yeah, so anyway, I ended up going on leave, on medical leave, because once I was able to do like a whole bunch of like neuropsych testing, because the doctor that prescribed me the medication for Adderall says, you know, if the Adderall isn't working, you need to do neuropsych testing because ADD isn't the issue. I was like, what the hell does she mean ADD isn't the issue? I can't pay attention to save my life. What does she mean? And so that really woke me up. I remember listening a lot to like Dr. Daniel Amen, and he would talk about ADD and just like, you know, SPECT scans of the brain, and how if when people who have ADD, when they try to pay attention, sometimes like the harder they try, the worse it gets. And that was definitely what I experienced. So I started watching and listening to like a ton of like TED Talks about ADD and ADHD and what, like, I mean, like hours and hours and hours of research. And it's like, clearly I have this. So then what started happening was that I would start like messing with my eye. Like I would always like feel like I had something in my eye. And I would just like constantly like be in the bathroom and be in the mirror. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have something in my eye, something in my eye. It was like a whole thing. And I remember like one day, it was off and on for hours, where I literally kept feeling like I had something in my eye, and it like one eye versus another eye. Like one day it's one eye, one day it's another. And people are like, oh, well, maybe you just had something wrong with your eyes. But I was like, no, I get this incident something else, because I started paying attention, you know, to the feedback that I was getting. And so I allowed myself to like become more curious, you know, what the fuck is actually going on? And what it came down to is that, oh, and here's the other thing too, meditation, right? I would start my meditations over and over and over again, because I would realize sometimes after I would be about 10 minutes in that I literally was not focusing on anything that the person leading the meditation was saying, to save my life. And I would listen to all these, you know, videos on meditation and you know, how to do it, and how you're not ever really doing it wrong. Like there is no wrong way to meditate. Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Whoever says that, stop saying that to people, especially people who know that like they're dealing with something, but they don't know what it is. And so, yeah, so I would like literally, I would, as much as I could, I would start the meditations over and over, so that I could actually like stay present for at least the majority of a meditation, at least half of it. And one of the things that I heard constantly was that, what was it they said? If you, what is it? Shoot. Oh, so like with meditation, like if you, oh, no, not meditation, sorry. When you wake up in the morning, meditate first thing in the morning or meditate last thing at night. And the reason why is because, you know, if you can overcome your mind in the morning, then you're gonna like excel throughout the whole day. And for me, that was not the situation. I I couldn't. I mean, you literally could have put a gun to my head and I would not have been able to, one, complete a task, two, finish, you know, cleaning my apartment within a reasonable amount of time, you know, that doesn't take like 5 times the amount of time that it should take a normal human. But people were just saying, you know, just like all of the like great, wonderful, you know, motivational speakers that I've like listened to in my life. And I'm just like, oh, wow, like, yes, like meditate in the morning, that will help me. And when you're dealing with what I was dealing with, it's just frustrating to think that something's supposed to happen for you a certain way and it doesn't. And so for me, I wasn't able to overcome my mind in the morning, because from the moment that I woke up until the moment that I went to sleep at night, my mind didn't stop. It was like, it was basically like a merry-go-round or a Ferris wheel. It just like, it went like round and round and round and round. And it didn't always get me somewhere. I will say though, there were times when it was kind of a superpower, because I could analyze the shit out of things. And that's part of like my spiritual journey, is that I'm able to I've been able to have powerful insights, because I've done work on myself, but I've also done work on other people that I've been in relationship with. Even if it wasn't healthy, even if it wasn't healthy, I would do that. And so, yeah, so basically, like what we learned was that I was battling severe anxiety, severe depression, and severe OCD and intrusive thoughts. And so part of like what that, just like messing with the eye and like feeling like I always had something in my eye, that was like OCD. The intrusive thoughts were just like the ruminating thoughts, like where I would literally, if something negative happened the day before, my brain would literally take that and like tear it apart like a rabid dog. Like I could not let off of it. But I will say I gained some very, very powerful, very amazing like insights that I was able to like share with other people and help them through some of their stuff, just because I had analyzed my stuff so much. But I had done it ad nauseum, and it was just, it had gotten to a point like where it wasn't even something I was able to control. And so eventually I was prescribed like Lexapro. And I will say, like, literally after a few days in, it was like a miracle drug for me. It was a miracle drug, because it's like someone like, and this is like before and after snapshot, right? So before, I would wake up and my thoughts would be thinking me. It was literally like that. It was like the thoughts were thinking me. It's just like the thoughts like had like a little party. And when I woke up, they were already like in the living room, hanging out in my head, and, just like literally having a little fucking party. Just, talking about what happened the day before, and why did she say that? And why did he say that? And why did they do that? And why didn't they just this? Or, and it was literally, I woke up to that every day, every day, every fucking day. Seriously. And so, basically, once I was on Lexapro, I literally, it was like someone took the volume of all those people, just like, rehashing the past and rehashing negative stories. And don't get me wrong, again, it was definitely my superpower, but it was also my kryptonite. And it was something where no matter like how hard I tried not to continue these thoughts, they weren't going away. Like it was like I was trying to like do like this to my brain, like stop that. And it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, but what about this? And I'm like, no, stop that. Let it go. Let it go. Oh, okay, got it. Got it. So what about the thing with like the other person? I'm like, oh my God, like shut the fuck up. Like that was literally like what I wanted to tell my brain. But no matter how much I told my brain that didn't stop it. And, I would try and set a timer. I'm like, okay, I get to think about this thing for like 5 minutes. you know, to try and like appeal to my ego, like, okay, I'll think about you for 5 minutes and then you go bye-bye. Okay. And I was like, okay. And then 5 would turn into 10 and 10 would turn into 15 and so forth and so on. So I think it was like day 3, took the Lexapro, woke up in the morning, and it was like someone had taken the volume to those thoughts and turned it all the way down. Do you hear that? Do you hear it? Listen. It was quiet. And I got to choose my thoughts more deliberately, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful for about 2 months. And then it stopped. And it's like someone just unmuted. They took it off the mute button. They like literally just cranked the volume all the way back up again. I was like, oh, you mean these thoughts? You mean these thoughts that you were trying to like stop thinking all the time? Those, oh, they didn't go away. You're so silly. We were just muted, but you know what? The mute button doesn't work anymore. And so that was very discouraging and very disheartening. You know, I was prescribed like Wellbutrin and like Effexor. And I was just like, at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this shit anymore. You know, I had a lot of anxiety in the form of anger. And once I let the anger out, I realized like, oh my God, like this wall came down around my heart in a way, but it was more like the anger wall came down. And once the anger wall came down, beneath it was a lot of sadness. And that was when I realized, oh shit, I have depression too. Oh, so disheartening. And I cried like so much. And, you know, I can say part of it was like maybe I didn't cry enough. But the thing for me is that the reason why I didn't recognize it as depression is because I didn't feel sad, but I also didn't feel anything. So now the volume to those negative ruminating thoughts was cranked all the way up. And then the volume to my heart was turned all the way down. Just why I didn't realize that I was depressed. It doesn't mean that you don't have good days. Like you have days where, you know, you feel pretty good. But when you look at it and you realize you're not laughing and your smiles are forced and they're like, hi. And I realized that I had a lot of emotional dishonesty going on in that, not even like necessarily just with myself, but I remember sometimes going to the doctor and like doing like the regular like scheduled neurofeedback and realizing that that, how do I describe it? The numbness, like just realizing there was just a lot of numbness. And I remember one of the times like the facilitator for the neurofeedback was saying to me, how are you feeling today, Nazra? And I said to her, I'm like, I've been good, a lot better, thanks. And then I thought about it, I'm like, oh my God, I literally just lied to this person who's here to help me. And so coming back full circle to the beginning of the video, why am I doing this? Why have I chosen to experience psilocybin? Because I've done my homework, I've done the research, MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, is an amazing organization that really has done its entire body of research on using psychedelics as a way to help treat mental illness. And I won't say I am anxiety. I experience anxiety. I experience it a lot. It shows up in very ADD ways, which is why we thought it was ADD. Even my doctor thought it was ADD. A couple of doctors thought it was ADD. But I am removing my ego of a mentality that says, well, I'm a good girl, so I just can't do those drugs. Well, I had to shed part of my ego to even do antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds. Or, ADD meds. I had to let go of a huge part of my identity that says, well, I don't do that. I was able to get rid of it just through fill in the blank, right? And that just wasn't my experience. And so since I, learned that this is an option for people who deal with some of the stuff that I've struggled with, it's given me a sense of hope and just letting go of that thing that says, well, I can't do that. I'm a good girl. Good girls don't do that. Well, I'm not going to a freaking rave and whatever those things that they whip around and the little streamers and just doing things, I don't know, to get attention or to escape. That's a big one. Because I feel like a lot of spiritual people really have to be very mindful of the fact that sometimes they can use plant medicine as a way to escape reality. I'm actually doing this as a way to go deeper into my spiritual practice and to peel back some of those layers and clear some space and get some clarity so that I can actually get relief. I can actually get results, long-lasting results that I can be super happy about and proud of. And I'm grateful to myself to letting go of, surrendering, letting go of this idea, well, that I can't do that. It's bullshit. A lot of things that I was brought up believing were bullshit. And now they did serve me in some healthy ways. I don't want to be that person, I don't know, talking to themselves, you know what I mean? On the side of the street or something like that. So, I mean, it's helped me be disciplined and the sense of not doing things that don't serve me. But I've made up for that in other ways by, just being more scattered and unfocused and just really making things harder on myself than I really need to. So this is why I'm here. This is part of my intention of just moving forward in a new, amazing way. Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting trip, and I'm excited to share that experience with you. So for now, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you soon after I pop my own psychedelic virgin cherry. So, thanks for following me. All right, signing off.